Chapter 59. School began on the 9th day of the 9th month of the calendar invented by a man for whom a crater was named on the moon. The first serious homework assignment in second grade was a one-page report on what you did this summer. Maria turned in a 7-page report with a cover made of cedar bark about mapping not only the topographical and zoological features of her area of residence, but also a brief essay about the interesting possibilities of mapping emotional landscapes and finding ways to add story to maps, so that the truly useful map, as she wrote, would exhibit not only the readily evident physical aspects of a place, but such as promontories and water features, but also local lore, notes on being past and present, and something of the songs and story of that place as distant from other places, even ones thought to be similar by the usual categorical measures, which are, of course, shallow and insufficient to the mapmaker who wishes to account a place in any kind of seriously layered way, rather than simply the topographical, or even worse, merely the concrete and macadam and cement ribbons we call roads and streets. In fact, as Maria wrote, warming to the task, we miss a wonderful chance in cartography and map-making to discover in the layered accounting of a place more of it than we could in any other single endeavor. To map a place is essentially to try to tell its stories, and the creative mapmaker sees this as a remarkable opportunity to plumb and explore, to study not only spatial but verbal, oral, musical, spiritual, literary, tactile, climatological, geologic, dendritic, atmospheric, electric, criminal, political, theatrical, and other narratives. For narrative preserved is the bailiwick of the dedicated mapmaker, and her task and pleasure in that responsibility is today made all the more attractive and interesting by the advent of new technologies for showing and sharing the wealth of narratives that are to be found in all places, be they famous or ostensibly obscure, the latter being, of course, a silly and unfair label, better phrased as not well mapped as yet. Maria's teacher asked her to stay after school on Friday for a few moments so they could discuss her report. Maria, delighted to speak freely about all this, Dave pretended to be asleep whenever she spoke of narrative mapping, walked her teacher through the more complex three-dimensional aspects on her iPad, like flow function, showing river level and volume by season, correlated to snowpack depth on the mountain, selected animal population ebb and flow. The otters were particularly interesting when correlated with highway traffic patterns, and even a selection of recorded stories filtered by the teller's gender and age. Female storytellers, Maria contended, were twice as likely to tell stories of a spiritual nature, defined broadly, than males, who were almost twice as likely to tell stories of adventure and misadventure than females. Although Maria had to admit the control group here was small, and she had not been able to recruit stories from beings other than human beings. The first time you see a person actually gape, open his or her mouth in astonishment, and, entranced or amazed or astonished or stunned or awed, whatever word you like, forget to close it again for a few lovely seconds, is a truly remarkable moment. It doesn't get enough credit as an incredible life moment. We are all over the incredible life moments of birth and death and kneeling down to ask for marriage, and the cold moment the word divorce first enters the kitchen, and sporting moments and moments of sudden violence and sexual moments and moments of mass hysteria like elections and concerts. But the little extraordinary moments that are not little, those should be in the Hall of Fame too, yes? Like the moment you realize you just did work that was play to you, or the moment you realize you aced a test because it was fun and you loved the subject and it didn't feel like a test at all, or the moment when you wanted to reach for the bottle with every iota of your being and you kept your hand still, clutching so tightly to the newspaper that you couldn't get the ink off your fingers for 2 days. Or the moment someone you so wanted to say yes said gently, yes. This was that sort of life moment for Maria, who looked up, smiling, after saying she would have loved to try a thorough insect population map, but just didn't have the time, and saw her teacher's lower lip, thick and lovely and gently lipsticked still, even at the end of the school day, hanging loose and astonished before its owner hauled it back up toward its partner. That was maybe the moment, Maria said to Dave many years later, when I started to realize that not everyone was like you and Mom and Dad, letting me chase whatever I wanted to, but also that I was right to chase after stuff I wanted to, even if a lot of people would think I was nuts. Did she think you were nuts? Asked Dave. No, said Maria, grinning, but she said I would be doing a lot of independent study the rest of the year. Studying what? Asked Dave. Otters, of course, said Maria. If you had 8 months to study whatever you wanted, wouldn't you study otters? Sure you would. Otters rule. I'd study Marten if I had the chance to study one animal for a lifetime, Dave is saying to Mr. Douglas. They're in the kitchen of Miss Moss's store, and Dave is making everything soup, and Mr. Douglas is poring over cookbooks on the off chance that someone he knows will ask him what foods she ought to have at the unwedding. Why Marten? Or why Marten? I think because no one knows anything about them, says Dave. No one even knows they exist except trappers and forest biologists and game wardens and people like that. I bet if you asked the next 100 people who walked into the store about Marten, maybe one would know what you were talking about. Everyone else would think you meant Marten somebody or somebody Marten. But trappers know, and I know. I've seen them. They are the most amazing animals. You know how most animals look like some other animal? Like a fox looks like a coyote or an osprey looks like a hawk? Marten don't look anything else, that they don't look like anything else except fishers, and fishers are 3 times bigger. I'd like to study them partly because they fascinate me and partly because no one knows anything about them, and if we knew more about them, maybe we wouldn't wipe them out. We're not wiping them out here, says Mr. Douglas. They're pretty healthy on the mountain. Lots of deep forest and squirrels here, and it's protected land, you know, so they ought to do well forever here. Except for trappers, says Dave, and he says this half politely and half challengingly. The former a Dave tone Mr. Douglas knows and admires, and the latter a Dave tone he had not heard until now. Trappers do more to preserve populations than anyone else, says Mr. Douglas carefully, looking at Dave, but Dave is staring into the soup pot. Trappers respect animals more than anyone else, continues Mr. Douglas. Trappers know how animals live and if their populations are healthy. Trappers never take more fur than the population can bear. We did it in the old days, sure, but not anymore. Who do you think tells the state scientists how to set limits and seasons? Where do you think the data comes from? From trappers. We know if a population is declining, and we are the ones who provide the numbers to the foresters. It's not like the old days when people would just take everything and move on. For one thing, there's no more on to move on to, and for another, we're a lot smarter about balance. Trappers are more environmentally alert and astute than any of your next 100 people walking in the door, Dave. It's killing, says Dave very quietly into the soup. Dave, what's in the soup? What? What's in the soup? Well, says Dave, well, everything. Name the ingredients. Carrots, garlic, potatoes, onion, peppers, peas, leeks. All killed for your soup. Pardon? Did you think the carrots weren't alive before they got pulled from the garden? The garlic, the leeks? Sentient beings, every one of them. They're born, they grow up, they sense light better than we do. They know how to eat minerals from the soil better than we do. They have enemies and communities and relationships beyond our understanding. Yet we yank them up and cut them up and eat them and don't think twice about it. And in the refrigerator there are pieces of chickens and pigs and cows and deer and ducks and salmon. It's all killing, Dave. Why is my profession crueler than any other way we kill beings for food and clothes? Why is that? At least in my profession, it's me and the animal, one-on-one, a battle of wits, and believe me, I lose the battle most of the time. There's factory farms in my profession, but trappers scorn them. You want to earn the price of a mink pelt, go catch a mink. I don't have truck with fur farms. But even at that, why is a mink farm any different from a piggery or a cattle ranch or a cornfield or a vineyard? Riddle me that. All killing, says Dave, even more quietly than before, and again speaking into the bubbling soup. Mr. Douglas pauses a long moment. He can feel his ire rising. He's been attacked before for killing sentient beings and scalping them and selling their skins, and his articulate defense is there on the tongue, ready for tart delivery. Yet he likes Dave. He understands something of Dave's anger and confusion, and he too was once 15, furious at the brilliant half-lies and eloquent excuses of adults, their shoddy bargains and easy rationalizations, their willingness to ignore and forget the inconvenient and unremunerative. Yes, says Mr. Douglas, all killing. There's no way around it, yet. I tease the vegetarians and the vegans for their prim arrogance, but you have to secretly admire the effort when it's not about being cooler than the next person. We do kill and eat and wear and use other beings all the time, from food to clothes to cabins and firewood. We do. Maybe someday we will evolve to just eating carrots and leeks, although that's still killing sentient beings, you know. But meanwhile, you can at least kill with respect. You can at least acknowledge the fact that the chicken and the carrot gave their lives for your nutrition. I don't suppose that the chicken and the carrot care much about your respect after the fact, but it's at least something. Religious people would say something about reverence right here, but I don't speak their language. I wish you wouldn't trap for Marten this year, said Dave suddenly. I wish you would take a year off. Focus on bobcat, like you were saying. Raccoon, mink, fox. Maybe leave the marten alone. Give them a break. Like farmers let a field go fallow to recover. You said yourself there's not all that many marten, not as many as there used to be. You said so yourself. You said they used to be all over the country from sea to sea, anywhere there was serious forest, and now they're not. Now they are only in the north and west, where there are still serious forests, and there will be ever more people and ever less serious forest, and so ever less marten, right? You said so yourself. So why go for marten this year? Give them a last year off. No one else traps for marten on this side of the mountain. You're the only one. You said so yourself. If the world keeps going like it's going, there will be just little islands of serious forest, and the marten can't stand that. They like to amble and roam. You said so yourself. You talk about respect. Take a year off out of respect. Give them a last year where they can ramble and roam and no one sets traps for them. Close the season the day before it opens. You could do that. You're in charge of marten trapping on this side of the mountain. Give them one last year when no one knows anything about them except you and me. I won't tell anyone. I won't even tell Miss Moss. I'll make up the lost money for you working extra in the store. We don't even need to tell Miss Moss. I'll just say I'm stashing extra money for college. If you don't give the marten a break, who will? And you don't lose $1 on the deal. They win and you win. My mom says that the birthday present system is all flawed and that on your birthday you should give everyone else presents. Isn't a wedding like that? So you're giving the marten a present in honor of your wedding. You're giving Miss Moss a present so cool she won't even know about it. Isn't that sort of the coolest present of all? A present that's not a thing? You say yourself we have too many things in our lives. Remember how angry you were at all the stuff dumped in the woods? Here's a chance to give a present that has nothing to do with things and everything to do with respect. Isn't that right, Mr. Douglas?